They say television interviews are predictable. Politicians repeat slogans, analysts dodge, and everyone smiles for the camera. But not this one. What happened on MBC TV today was pure fire. Kondwani Kachamba didn't just sit down for a friendly chat. He detonated a string of revelations so wild, even the anchors looked like they needed popcorn and a lie detector. The headline? Zodobwaitsa Zonle Wawulula Kachamba pa MBC TV Lero. And trust me, that headline didn't lie. In just 30 minutes, Kachamba shifted from calm storyteller to bold whistleblower, name-dropping connections, hinting at hidden power networks, and, in true Kachamba fashion, throwing shade wrapped in humor. One viewer summed it up best online. Uyu sanengo yangula, walanda moyo moantu. This man didn't just speak, he took people's breath away. Now, before we unpack the chaos, let's remember who we're dealing with. Kondwani Kachamba isn't new to controversy. He's been both praised as a brave truth-teller and dismissed as a political opportunist. But on this day, on that MBC stage, he came not to entertain, but to expose. And in the spirit of @GlobalPulseNewz, we're not here to take sides. We're here to decode the storm. So buckle in as we dive into revelation number 1, the alliance nobody wanted you to know about. Revelation 1, the secret power web. Kachamba started softly, smiling, thanking the host, adjusting his mic like he was about to talk about something simple. But then he leaned forward, and his voice dropped. Let me tell you something that many people in Malawi pretend not to know. There are alliances that run this country, not the ones in parliament, but the ones behind those who sit there. The studio went quiet. He went on. Some of these alliances include people you see every day smiling on your screens, politicians, businessmen, even church leaders. They shake hands on camera, but they make real deals in private rooms, away from the cameras. The implication was clear. Malawi's real power, according to Kachamba, isn't fully in the visible government. It's spread across informal networks of influence. These are the silent shareholders of the nation's direction. And if what he says holds weight, the country's democracy might just be a shadow play for the public. He even hinted at names without saying them outright. There is one former minister, one top business owner, and one man of God, all meeting, discussing tenders and appointments like it's their private chessboard. Now, whether he's exaggerating or not, the timing of this revelation couldn't be more sensitive. With election season looming, these words are like fire to dry grass. Everyone wants to know, who are these 3 people? Analysts are already calling the statement one of the boldest live TV accusations of the year. It's one thing to post on Facebook, but it's another to say it on national TV, under studio lights, knowing millions are watching. And as if that wasn't enough, Kachamba wrapped this bombshell with a chilling statement. One day, when Malawians will open their eyes, they'll realize that we have been electing faces, not forces. That line hit like a thunderclap. Online forums went crazy. Within minutes, #Kachamba on MBC trended on Malawian Twitter and Facebook. Some called him brave, others said he was reckless, but all agreed he'd shaken the table. One commenter wrote, Uyu sanengo yangula, walanda moyo moantu. This man didn't just speak, he took people's breath away. For viewers, the shock wasn't only in what he said, it was in how he said it. Calm, measured, almost too confident, like a man who knew he had already crossed the point of no return. But if Revelation 1 was about hidden power, the next one digs deeper into the voices that shape that power. Because as Kachamba put it, with a smirk at the end of that segment, you think power speaks through parliament? No, my friends, power speaks through the media. And that line, that was the hook that led to his next explosion.
When Kachamba dropped the line, power speaks through the media, you could almost hear the producers in the control room take a deep breath. Because when you poke the media beast, it bites back fast. He started with that half smile Malawians know too well, calm, almost playful, but every sentence sharpened like a blade. He said, "Let's not pretend. Some of the loudest voices on radio and television in Malawi are not speaking for the people. They are speaking for their paymasters." Boom, silence again. Even the host froze for a second, unsure whether to smile or look concerned. Kachamba leaned forward and continued. "We have turned journalism into a business of allegiance. Some stations are owned by people with political ambitions. Some presenters are told what to ask and what not to ask. And if you doubt me, check who funds the airtime, who buys the ads, who controls the narrative." It wasn't a random rant. It was methodical. He named no one but hinted at everyone. MBC, Zodiac, Times, all of them suddenly part of the unspoken question, who really runs the news? In Malawi, where media is both trusted and feared, this statement hit deep. You could feel the ripple through WhatsApp groups and newsroom corridors because everyone knows media control is power control, and power loves microphones. Kachamba didn't stop there. He added, "If stories disappear from headlines, don't think it was boring. Think who made the call. We are living in a time when airtime can be bought like airtime bundles." It was sarcastic but deadly serious. The audience laughed nervously. The host tried to deflect, saying, "That's quite a strong statement, Mr. Kachamba." But he wasn't backing down. "Strong statements come from strong truths," he replied. "You can't say we're free when every truth needs permission before it's aired." That line alone became a quote graphic within minutes. Every truth needs permission. Printed, reposted, remixed. Analysts later said that Kachamba's approach was clever. He didn't directly attack any media house, but by addressing all of them, he created a climate of self-reflection. Everyone felt slightly guilty. Everyone wondered if they'd been the one he meant. But then came his most cryptic sentence of the night. "When the airwaves get owned, the people's minds follow." That single phrase exposed the heart of his argument. Control the microphone, control the message, control the message, control the nation. He paused, adjusted his tie, and added into Chewa softly. "Mongo mene emalembaniki, choncho antu amaganiza." As stories are written, so do people think. And that's when the camera zoomed in, capturing the seriousness on his face. Kachamba was making it clear. The fight for power isn't fought in parliament halls anymore. It's fought in broadcast rooms, in editorial meetings, and on social media timelines. He closed the segment with a jab that left the whole nation whispering. If truth had a radio frequency in Malawi, it would be jammed every day. And with that line, the host knew this was no ordinary interview. But just when people thought he was done targeting institutions, he dropped something heavier. Because the next revelation wasn't about media or politics, it was about money. And as every Malawian knows, once you talk about money, that's when things get truly dangerous. Transition hook. Brace yourself, because Revelation 3 was the real landmine. Kachamba's accusations about financial misconduct didn't just rattle pockets, it shook the entire system. Let's dive into that storm next.
When the topic turned to money, the entire tone of the interview changed. The studio, moments ago buzzing with energy, suddenly felt like a courtroom. You could feel that even the cameras knew this next part was going to sting. Kachamba took a long breath before speaking. He said, "Malawi's biggest problem isn't lack of funds. It's the disappearance of funds. Money moves, but it moves in darkness." And just like that, the conversation turned into an exposé. He went on to describe what he called a chain of clever corruption. There are budgets announced publicly, he said, but those budgets are ghosts. You hear about billions allocated to roads, hospitals, education, but when you go there, you find potholes, expired medicine, and empty classrooms. Someone somewhere has eaten the soul of that money. The audience murmured. Even through the TV, you could sense the tension. Kachamba continued, voice rising with each sentence. "Do you know how easy it is to hide millions? Just create a company that exists only on paper. Give it a government contract. Deliver nothing. And when you ask where the money went, you get a receipt and a smile." At that point, social media exploded. Viewers started tagging officials, journalists, and anti-corruption activists, asking, "Is this true?" Kachamba wasn't holding back. He gave examples, without naming specifics, but enough to make people connect the dots. A certain ministry spent over $800 million on vehicles, he said. Go to that ministry today, you'll find only 6 cars running. The rest are under maintenance. Which garage eats that kind of money? His sarcasm was thick, but his message was clear. The people responsible for corruption don't steal in back alleys anymore. They steal in boardrooms through signatures and stamps. He continued, corruption has gone to school. It wears suits, it speaks English, and it quotes regulations while stealing. That line hit Malawians deep, funny on the surface, painful in meaning. The host, visibly uncomfortable, tried to change the topic, asking about reforms, but Kachamba wasn't ready to leave the battlefield. Reforms, he laughed. You can't reform a system that protects itself. You can only expose it, and exposure is what scares them the most. He even touched on donor funds, a sensitive topic for any government. He said, money comes from outside, and before it touches a rural community, it's already been cut by 5 hands. Everyone takes their share before the last kwacha reaches the ground. The public loved his bluntness, but feared his bravery. Comments poured in online, Uyu akafuna kufa, which means this one is asking for trouble. Others praised him. At least someone is saying it out loud. He ended this segment with a warning, both haunting and poetic. If Malawi does not clean its money will clean Malawi by washing away what's left of integrity. And as he said that, he looked straight into the camera. No smile, no pause. It was one of those moments when silence speaks louder than applause. But even as that revelation echoed across living rooms, Kachamba wasn't done shocking the nation, because what he said next hit closer to the heart, about who he really is and why people keep connecting his words to the legacy of Bakili Muluzi TV. Transition hook. Up next, the twist nobody saw coming. Revelation 4 wasn't about money or power. It was about identity, legacy, and an old name resurfacing on Malawi's airwaves. Get ready for the biggest curveball of the night.
Just when the viewers thought Kondwani Kachamba had already unleashed every secret in his arsenal, he shifted gears, from money to legacy, from systems to self. The interviewer looked relieved for a moment, thinking they'd finally moved to a softer topic. But what came next wasn't soft at all. It was a shockwave wrapped in charisma. Kachamba looked straight into the camera and said, "People think they know who I am, but they don't. They call me names, they attach me to stories, and they write my script before I open my mouth. But today, I'll tell you, my story didn't start yesterday." The host leaned in, sensing something big, and then Kachamba dropped the name that made half the country's ears ring. Even Bakili Muluzi himself knows me. Yes, the former president. Ask him about me, and he'll tell you, I'm not a stranger to power. Boom. That was the sound of social media catching fire. Bakili Muluzi TV started trending immediately. People wanted to know, was Kachamba confirming a mentorship, a rivalry, or a hidden partnership? Was he saying he's connected to the same influence that built the old Muluzi media empire? Kachamba smirked and continued. There were those who say I want to be like Muluzi, that I speak like him, that I move like him. But let me tell you something. If telling the truth makes me sound like him, then so be it. He laughed briefly, but it wasn't a joke. It was defiance. He was reclaiming a narrative that others had twisted into mockery. Kachamba then explained that he had once worked closely with people who were part of Muluzi's early political media strategies. He described the atmosphere of those days when communication was a weapon and information was gold. Those days, he said, you couldn't just go on TV and speak your mind. You had to be coded. But we learned how to speak truth in riddles. That's where I learned my voice. The revelation reframed him, not just as a loud figure, but as someone shaped by the political media culture of the early 2000s. It also explained why his delivery, confidence, and rhythm often reminded people of Muluzi-era firebrands. He smiled again and added, "People think I'm copying someone. No, I'm continuing a style of truth-telling that others abandoned because it stopped being convenient." Critics online started speculating whether this was a subtle endorsement of Bakili Muluzi's legacy or a warning to those who underestimated Kachamba's connections. Either way, it was electric television. In Chichewa, he closed that segment saying, "Simungan dizime chifuko chotimuman di chita underestimate." You can't silence me just because you underestimate me. The delivery was powerful, like a verbal signature on his public persona. But before the audience could fully digest the Muluzi connection, Kachamba made one more pivot. His voice softened, his face turned serious again. He said, "You see, when you speak too much truth, you make powerful enemies, but the truth doesn't die, even when the messenger does." That line silenced the studio. Transition hook. And just like that, Kachamba set the stage for his final revelation, one that turned from politics to personal risk, from exposure to endurance. What he said next made everyone realize this wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a warning.
By the time Kondwani Kachamba reached his final revelation, the entire nation was glued to their screens. Even those who had initially tuned in out of curiosity were now sitting in silence, leaning closer, trying not to miss a single word. The air felt heavier. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a man putting his neck on the line. He began quietly, almost reflective. You know, when you speak like this on live television, you can feel the fear breathing behind the cameras, but fear doesn't scare me anymore. Silence does. The host nodded slowly, unsure whether to interject. Kachamba continued, "Malawi is a country of whispers. Everyone knows what's wrong, but no one wants to say it first. They wait for someone else to fall, then they clap in private. But today, I'm saying it publicly. The system we live in is sick, and if we don't treat it, it will eat us alive." That's when you could almost hear the heartbeat of the audience. It wasn't just political commentary anymore. It was confession mixed with prophecy. He looked down briefly, then straightened his back. "They told me, don't go on MBC and talk like that. They'll come for you. But tell me, if the truth makes them come for me, then let them come, because truth must walk where fear hides." That line, "Truth must walk where fear hides," hit like lightning. Within minutes, it was trending, plastered across Facebook statuses, Twitter posts, and WhatsApp groups. Kachamba leaned in once more, his tone fierce but steady. "I'm not against government. I'm not against church. I'm not against media. I'm against pretense. I'm against people who smile in daylight and steal in darkness. I'm against those who call themselves servants of the people but live like kings off taxpayers' money." He paused. Then in Chichewa, he added with a soft but haunting voice, "Digo silingite kupe patsegolo ngati cho onadi chili manja wa ochepa." A nation cannot move forward if the truth is in the hands of the few. It was raw, poetic, and painfully true. Then came the moment that sealed the interview's legacy. The host asked cautiously, "Mr. Kachamba, aren't you afraid of the consequences?" Kachamba smiled slightly, shook his head, and replied, "I don't fear consequences. I fear silence. Because silence is how corruption wins. Silence is how lies become law. Silence is how good men become ghosts." And then, looking straight into the lens, he delivered the final blow. "If anything happens to me after tonight, don't say you didn't hear this. Record this moment, because what I've said today is not politics. It's truth wearing courage." The studio fell dead quiet. No one dared to speak. Even the lights seemed dimmer, like the building itself was absorbing the weight of those words. For many watching, this wasn't just an interview anymore. It was history in real time. A man challenging the culture of fear, secrecy, and silence that grips Malawi's public life. When the program ended, phones buzzed nonstop. Calls came in from journalists, activists, even anonymous insiders. Some praised him, others called him reckless, but every single person admitted Kachamba had said things few would ever dare to say on state television. He closed his appearance with one final statement that summed up his entire message. Malawi doesn't need another hero. It needs honest people in every corner, in offices, in churches, in homes.
Truth is not a slogan, it's a lifestyle. That was it. The mic drop, the words that would echo long after the broadcast ended. And just like that, Kondwani Kachamba turned a television interview into a national mirror, forcing everyone to look at themselves and ask, who are we becoming? Was it bravery, recklessness, or just desperation for honesty? Maybe all three. But one thing is certain. After that MBC interview, Malawi won't forget his voice anytime soon. The lines between courage and controversy, truth and danger blurred in real time, and every viewer felt it. So now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Kachamba's boldness the medicine Malawi needs, or did he cross the line between truth and provocation? Do you believe his connections to Bakili Muluzi TV mean something deeper, or was that simply strategy to stir the conversation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion matters. And if you want more fearless analysis of Malawi's unfolding political drama, subscribe to Global Pulse News, ring the bell, and stay alert. Because as we've just witnessed, sometimes truth isn't whispered, it's shouted live on national TV. This is Global Pulse News, where we don't just report the headlines, we decode them.